I'll go live on Facebook today while we're here. Why not? And also, it's being recorded.
Have
So,
you done that before?
say again.
Have you done that before?
I used to go live on there quite a bit. Actually, that's how I had a Sunday a Sunday group that was really heavy on there, and we would also go live during. This was during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
And it was crazy during the pandemic, man. I would have like 30, 40 people on the live. But it wasn't only for table talks, it was for practice. People wanted to move their body.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's how a lot of people who practice with me right now, that's how we established that relationship.
Nice.
So, anyway, let's get into it. And welcome back to you all for being here today with our table talk. And we're just continuing our discussion here of Sifu Ron's experience, Sifu Ron Hoffman's experience at the temple of the 18 Lohan. I was thinking too, kind of wanted to go back a little bit because it's actually going to tie into where we are right now. So thinking about Sifu Ron, who was Sifu Ron, and when he started on his Temple Tai Chi journey. And by the way, we're talking about his unpublished book, as well as notes that he left me. I mean, years and years of notes, and also journal entries. So remember when we first started talking and reading from Sifu's book, he first went to the temple of 18 Lohan in Taiwan. And he was he like 17 or young 20s? I forget the exact age. But I was just thinking of the mindset and how bold he was, or how fearless he was. I don't know if I can say fearless, because he talked about fear in one of these journal entries, and how he actually became afraid once he went over there, because the training was so intense, not physically but mentally, and then being away from Chicago inside of a highly populated area, and then going off into a remote area off in the mountains in Taiwan with one monk and like 3 other trainees, and living off on the mountain cliff somewhere, very remote, So he actually ran away. He ran away one time and came back to America. And once he came here, he decided that he needed to go back. He just felt like he did not complete his mission there. And he went back. And now, once he went back, family, he attempted to run away again. And now this time, Fasu, who was the head monk there, he's actually like the abbot of the temple. And one other senior from the area, those two encouraged Sifu Ron to stay and not go back. Now remember, Master Liao, who was the leading, I'll say the head of Temple Tai Chi, he's the one who decided that Sifu Ron needed to get away from America and go over to those mountains and be with his teacher, who was Fasu, the abbot at the temple. So those type of relationships, they don't come by often, you know what I'm saying? So letting fear take you and run you away from that will be hard to get over, I would say. So I'm glad he went back, And selfishly, so I am really, 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 really glad he went back, because he gave me a gift, what I call a gift of life, which is the Tai Chi. And it just keeps growing on me, family. It just keeps growing on me. But let's get into this journal entry here that Sifu left back for us to discuss, or to, I guess, I don't know if he knew we would be discussing it or not, but I guess he knew it would get in at least one right hand. They say it only takes one right hand, not the right hand, but the correct hand. and I look at myself as being that. So he says, on the origin, this is the title of this journal entry. On the origin of movement in Tai Chi. Now, we're always talking about movement, but I'm just thinking right here, because I know how Sifu thinks, you know. One thing they say in Tai Chi, here's Dharma, hey Dharma, they say that it's rooted in the feet. This is a very common saying in Tai Chi. It's rooted in the feet. And that's kind of like an open statement, and you kind of like got to draw your own conclusions. And personally, I think people have been drawing the wrong conclusions, or incomplete conclusions, I should say. Because although it's rooted in the feet, and I think that people are thinking movement, right? Because it talks about the origin of movement. It doesn't originate in the feet. The movement doesn't originate in the feet, or at least I should say it shouldn't. Not once you start developing the Tai Chi body and the way of moving the body. That would be a more physical way of moving our body. And most of us, that's where we start, right? Now we kind of like push down on the ground to cause our body to go into action. Pushing down with our legs, which are connected to our feet. But that's not what we want to be doing. And I oftentimes remind people to stop gripping the floor with your toes. I hear other teachers telling people, grip the floor with your toes. To me, how can you let go and release if you're causing tension on purpose? And intentional tension by gripping the floor with your feet, which is going to engage all of those different muscles and connective tissue. These are my feet right now, my toes, right? All of this is going to get tight. So to me, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So I'm glad we're here. So Sifu says, on the origin of movement in Tai Chi, I return to practice upon rising with a question that has been quietly maturing in the background of my training. Where does movement truly begin? Questioning himself. These are journal entries, by the way. For years, I repeated the common instruction that power comes from the legs. This would be more of an external way of doing things. He says power comes from the legs. And while this is not wrong, it's incomplete. Today, during standing meditation, I felt again the unmistakable truth that Tai Chi does not begin at the bottom. It begins in the center. Long before the legs ever know long before the legs ever know what they are about to do. So you follow me so far, family? I like how he laid this out. It's pretty clear, pretty clean cut. And he's dropping a lot in there, especially for a new person. Now, he's probably going to piggyback. He's probably going to mention what came to my mind here. In Tai Chi, here's another common saying: the Yi leads the Chi. Yi, Y-I, being intent or mind. So notice that Sifu said that the movement begins not from below, but he's saying that it begins or originates from the center. And when we think of center, think about lower dantian. That's our lower center of gravity, right? About 3 inches, or I should say not 3 inches, about 3 widths, fingers widths below the belly button, right? And then also that energy center is inside about that same distance. So below the belly button and inward toward our spinal column from the inside is the dantian, our lower center of gravity. He's saying that everything begins there. And this is where I say that it actually originated here with the thought before it goes physical. So we go from seen, or we go from unseen to seen. So the unseen in this case is the thought that predicates movement from the center. This is my explanation. I hope that makes sense. That makes sense?
It makes sense, but I see it another way.
Yeah, go for it.
I feel like Tai Chi starts in the spirit.
Definitely that as well. Yeah.
Because it's just like for me. Because when I'm thinking, I'm still constricted.
Right.
But when I'm just letting my spirit guide me, it feels different. So it's like intuitive. So I feel like if I was actually in a combative situation, it would have to be more intuitive than me thinking through it. I would just have to go with my intuition, but also moving from the lower dantian.
Definitely that. So when I say the yi, so yi is intent. So when we say yi, we're not communicating thought, right? So you want to have no mind,
Right.
and if you have thought, the yi will be scattered and it will be delayed, like you just said. And if you're into a physical confrontation and you're thinking, you're already late.
Right.
So that intuitive feel, what is it? It's not a thought.
It's just knowing.
The knowing, I would say 1000% predicates the physical movement, which originates from our center, right? So let's definitely carry that away from the conversation. Those two things for sure, or probably three things. It's not thinking. That would be the logical mind. We want to be in the meditative mind state. We know that. If not, there is no flow, right? Once you start thinking you're late and you've probably already been abducted or whatever it may be, you're late. And sometimes people get frozen, and that happens from fear.
Yeah.
Right? So the more we can practice the principles, and the flow state is one of the principles, because Tai Chi is meditation in motion at some point. In the beginning, it's not, because we're doing a whole lot of thinking, right? Where to put our foot. Oh, I feel balanced. I feel cumbersome. Oh, I feel like, this or that. That's all thinking.
That happened in the practice today, when we were practicing today.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was so much like in my head and thinking about my leg bothering me and this is gonna. But once I just let myself go, it felt better, and I felt myself moving more freely. Yeah, but in the beginning of today's practice, I was in my head a lot because I was afraid that I was going to hurt this leg.
Right.
That was all hurt. Yeah.
The thought, and that was blocking that intuitive way of moving. You know what I'm saying? That the thought kind of blocks that, because it's a different frequency.
Yeah.
It's a lower level frequency, lower than the higher level, which would be the intuitive knowing. And a lot of times when we say knowing, people think we're talking about like an intellectual type of knowing. It's not that.
It's not.
It's more like a gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
Which they say the gut is our second brain. The gut is our second brain. And science shows that there's so many neurons inside of this lower area. Also in our heart space, there's a lot of neurons. I want to say, they say it's more here than in our brain and spinal column. There's more there, for sure. Definitely a high number, right? So science, and I was telling you about my one friend who's a neuro doctor. He's willing to admit himself. He's like, we only know a small part about the brain. He says, I'm not taking anything away from these very intelligent people. He says, but we got a long ways to go, And he started talking about how now they're starting to use like sound. We talk about vibration. They're using sound to excise tumors. How crazy is that? So they had this sound frequency directed in like a laser, and the vibration from the sound frequency obliterates the tumor. Craziness. They didn't know that a couple years back. You know what I'm saying? So I think what we're doing as this newer civilization, because we are a relatively young civilization, I feel like we're starting to relearn a lot of the stuff that the ancient ones, I'm talking ancient ones, were already in tune with. I feel like we got away from that. Remember earlier you were talking about being intuitive and how you feel like your intuitive abilities kind of declined.
Yeah.
So imagine over the years that it's been on a sudden decline, not just with you, but generation by generation. Because of our circumstances, dealing with what we call the red dust, all the stress, all the distractions and stuff. So Tai Chi gets us back in alignment to start remembering. Look at the word remembering. Remember. So it's like bringing the parts back together again. Bringing ourselves back into alignment. And it's right on time with our discussion. It's rooted in our feet. But we don't want to begin the movement in our feet because that'll start having us to separate that whole body movement, which comes from the center. Sifu talks more here. He says, and Dan, welcome. Good to see you, brother. He says, for years I repeated the common instruction that power comes from the legs. And while this is not wrong, it's incomplete. Today, during standing meditation, I felt again unmistakable truth that Tai Chi does not begin at the bottom. He says the dantian is not merely a poetic idea. Some people think that it's just some type of poetic or an illusion. He says that it is a physical, some people think it's not physical, they think it's all energetic. But there is some physicality inside of that area that is inclusive inside of that dantian description, right? So we want to be able to identify physically where is that area, right? The yao, we talk about the yao, right? That space right below the ribs. So think about how this wraps around. This is all connected to dantian and being able to move that center as if we were like a circle or a spear. So it is a physical, mechanical, and a perpetual hub. That's a good word. Perpetual hub. He says, when I settle into Wuji. So what is Wuji? I think you just explained that, whether you realize it or not. I think that in order to tap into those higher level abilities, the intuition, and to be in the knowing, that will be the Wuji. It is before we gather any thoughts, but all thoughts are already there. We just hadn't connected with anything yet. It's like a big field of opportunity, this Wuji. So he says there's a moment when the mind quiets. Got to have a quiet mind. And society doesn't want us to have a quiet mind. So we're like antagonistic forces here, right? We want to slow down, quiet down, but we're thinking about the 40-hour work week. I did say week because it makes you weak. At the end of the week, you feel drained. You feel drained.
Yeah.
You need those 2 days off, and if there was a third one, you would take that one too, myself included.
Or fourth, or fifth, or sixth.
Because you never get caught up because it's the rat wheel, right? But
yeah.
What I've noticed as a result, and I know it's a result of the years of practice, we start to be able to bring those moments of peace into all of our environments. You get what I'm saying? Raking the yard, having a conversation with an employee, employer, loved one, child, friend, whatever. You learn how to listen more attentively. And soon you start noticing that you've created more space for that peace and relaxation. And things that don't serve you well, remember, Tai Chi philosophy for me and for anybody that studies with me, first and foremost is to help and cause no harm, right? So how are we helping ourselves? We got to take a look. Or how are we not helping ourselves? Are we taking that idle time? Sifu says, when I settle into Wuji, to me, that would be that idle time. There is a moment when the mind quiets enough for the body's internal hierarchy. I like that. The internal hierarchy reveals itself. He says, of course, the legs provide a physical structure. He says the feet provide the root. But if you think about roots on a tree, they're just going through the space. Roots want water, not too much. They don't want to drown. They want darkness, right? And in that water, they're looking for certain things, so they want good water. And they'll go towards the moisture. So if you let the water settle down, the roots will go deep. But if you only water in surface level, the roots will be pretty surface level. So that's why we do our standing meditation, so that the root can settle deeper and deeper down and towards our feet. Now remember, the origin of the movement is not coming from there, but there is a structure provided from there through the feet and legs. He says, but neither of those initiate anything. Hey, Dharma, baby, I'm busy. He says, they wait, they listen, they respond. The first impulse arises in the deep tissues around the lower abdomen. I just mentioned that. The yao. All of that will be included inside of that lower region or our center. The yao being the space below the floating ribs. I think of it like I got a tire. You know, when we were kids and we had those life preservers for swimming?
Yeah.
And it was like a tube. That tube is still there. It's just invisible for me. Some people still got one. I had to throw that in.
You must have been looking at me in my swimming pool.
Actually, I was reflecting in the mirror, man.
I must be the only adult in the neighborhood that got one.
You're not. Trust me. I was lying to you guys, man. I got to slow down on the peanut butter crackers, man. I got to slow down on the peanut butter crackers. So that lower abdomen, that's our power center, family. He says a subtle spiraling that feels more like intention taking shape than a muscular contraction. I can agree with that. That's that whole body movement. That's why they say we become the ball. And in my mind, you know what I envision myself as? Don't laugh. That Michelin tire guy. For some reason, that resonates with me when it comes to being buoyant. Like Tai Chi has the pong, the buoyant. Anything bump into that Michelin tire guy is going to bounce off. I don't know why. That just resonates with me. He says this morning, so still going through this journal, Seafoods, he says this morning, you know we don't really do mornings. I experimented with isolating that moment. Isolating that moment. He says, before shifting weight, I'll allow dantian to breathe. So think about this. Follow it step by step, family. Before shifting weight, I'm breathing from dantian. This is with mindfulness. He says, a tiny expansion, almost impeccable. So expanding from that center point in all directions. He says, the waist followed. So here we are. Now the waist is getting involved. Not by choice, he says. He says, this happened out of necessity, as if the center's movement created a vacuum the rest of the body had to fill. People think this sounds all poetic and fluffy, but it relates. It definitely resonates with me. He says, only after this did the legs awaken. So dantian wakes up, boom, now the legs are ready to go. He says, adjusting pressure through the soles. Yes, indeed. So family, at some point, you're going to feel like when you're standing, especially like if you're standing in a 50-50 parallel, and we call it Wuji, right? You're going to feel like you're kind of floating a little bit. You're going to feel that buoyancy. And this is what they say. They say that feeling is a product of, this is my foot right now. The bottom of our feet, we have a acupressure point there, K1. K1. It's called the bubbling well. At some point, and one of the major key things that we have to do is relax our ankles and our feet, but we'll open those bubbling wells more, and they call them bubbling wells, becoming bubbling springs. So the well bubbling at the bottom, and then the spring comes up. That's when the energy is able to go up the spinal column. That's why I like to do those exercises where we're standing, right? And we're coming up on the balls of the feet, lifting the heels, and then rolling the foot back down on the floor, and then picking up the toes, going back on our heels, because we're working those bubbling wells. Oh, you're going to start feeling it if you haven't already. If you're gripping the floor with your toes and locking the energy, Seafood said, you're in conflict with the earth right now. You're in conflict with the earth. Also, we have gravity. You don't need to grip the floor to hold on. Gravity will do its job. That's a law of nature. It's there. Just trust it. Let go, relax, become more song. He says, the ways followed, not by necessity. No, not by choice, but by necessity. He says, only after this did the legs awaken. So the legs have become awakened. He says, the arms, as always, were the last to know. You heard that part? The arms being the last to know. So the majority of Tai Chi, and I say this feeling that it is definitely a correct statement. Because when we first start out, all of us, I say the majority of us, I can't say all. I'll say 99.999% of us, we're leading with our upper body. We're leading with our arms, our shoulders, our chest, because that's how we're used to moving in everyday life. So our arms are actually initiating the movement in the beginning. But as we continue to practice in the proper way, we will soon begin to see that the arms are simply connected to the body via the shoulders. Position the shoulders properly, moving from center, starting here with intent, not thinking. And we'll have that spiraling motion where our Tai Chi is no longer just what they say, just arm movement. It becomes whole body movement. He says that it struck me how often beginners and even experienced practitioners under stress, I've been there, try to push themselves into movement from the feet or the thighs. It happens. So as he said, even being I would say an adept with experience, get into some stress, man, you start using the upper body strength and your legs are now disconnected from the earth. Just like that. And push hands will show you that. It'll show you that. That's why I tell people all the time, don't get into a shoving match with your push hand, because you're teaching your body to use all upper body and not being connected completely. And if you're pushing with a person that knows how to push, they're going to just be tossing you around very easily because you're all upper body and you're disconnected. You cut yourself off from the earth. So the earth is no longer working for you at all. So he says, the result of being disconnected is always, well, he just said that. The result is always the same, disconnection. The upper body arrives late. The joints begin to lock and the movement becomes segmented. It becomes segmented. You're no longer whole now because you're using the upper body. You hadn't used any center. And I'm not talking about you, but just using the word. He says, when the legs initiate, the body becomes a collection of individual parts. Check this out. When the legs initiate, the body becomes a collection of parts, individual parts. When the center initiates, the body becomes a single organism. That's how we want to move. That's the whole body power. He says, I am beginning to understand why the classics, talking about Tai Chi classics, Why the classics insist that the root is in the feet, the issuing through the legs, the command is in the waist, and the expression is in the hands. That's a very important sequence of events there. The root is in the feet, the issuing is through the legs, the command is in the waist, and the expression is in the hands. You get what I'm saying, family? So we got somebody here ask a question here. My good brother, I hadn't seen you in a while, Brother Cologne. He says, so do we work the center? Do we work the center? Now, I wouldn't say that we work the center in a, it's not like doing leg lifts or doing crunches. Not that kind of work in the center. But yes, we work the center. I'll give you an example of something you can do to start bringing more mindfulness into the center, right? So this is how we start working the center, since you stated that way. And going right back to what Sister Sherry mentioned earlier, from a non-physical standpoint, working the center, it starts not with the logical thought, but the yi. So we bring our attention into that center. Master Liao says that the original life force energy, right? We're working to strengthen that signal. That's the whole purpose behind the practice. If you're not strengthening that signal, you're not really moving the chi. So we have to use the yi, which is the intent. So we focus on this. And he says that when we were first born, right? And we came out and we had that umbilical cord connected to our umbilicus, right? Our belly button. They cut that thing. Well, that's where that original life force energy was coming into us from our mom. This is the example that he gave. And with the receiving of that original life force energy going into dantian area, right? Belly button right there. There's a specific feeling that is involved with that. Remember, Tai Chi is a feeling practice, but not necessarily feeling like this. Feeling like intuition would be a feeling. Knowing is like a feeling. So we can reawaken the feelings by putting our mind there, not by thinking. One way would be just as I just described, where we're using our imagination. So we want to imagine that we are, although no longer connected physically here at this lower dantian, energetically, we have a connection coming from here that's connected to the entire universe. So the universe is our mother at this point, the atmosphere. And we're breathing in from here. And you'll oftentimes see a lot of the internal teachers, their hands always right here. Sifu would have his hands under the table like this, holding a Tai Chi ball. Why do you think it's there? Because he's working it. Just like, yeah, he's working it. Breathing long, slow, deep, diaphragmatic, non-forced breathing, mindfulness right here. You can always get in the breath with mindfulness. You can always work it. So I hope that makes sense. And that is legit a practice that we practice. And as Master Liao says, most people don't practice it enough. And you can do it discreetly. Nobody has to see it. You can be at work sitting at the desk or whatever. If people see you doing that, they might think you're a little weird, you know? But anyway, brother, hope that helped you. He says the body becomes a single organism. Single organism, man. So think about when we were, that's a memory we can wake up. At one point, we were a single-celled organism, for sure. We were that. You can wake that up. You can wake up the feeling of love. Real love, not lust. Right? All those things are there. Now, what happens is most people wake up the feeling of fear way too much. They're living in fear. They're practicing fear without even realizing it. And once again, society is based off of having people in a fearful mind state. Sky is falling, Chicken Little. No, it's not. No, it's not. Rewrite the narrative. Flip that thing around. He says there's a moment in push hands. So he goes into push hands, and I'm glad he did. We still got a few minutes. So push hands is a tool, right? It's a training device. It's not meant, it never was meant to be a competition. But the ego gets in the way, and people take that training device or tool and they turn it into some type of stand-up shoving wrestling match. Getting far away from what it was intended to be. Now, the skills that you pick up in push hands, you can use those skills in wrestling and a whole lot of other things. But let's call it what it is, because there's a lot of confusion in regards to what it is. So there is a moment in push hands when this principle becomes undeniable. He says, if I try to move, remember we're talking about movement again, and the origin of movement. Where does it originate? He says, if I try to move from my legs, my partner feels it instantaneously. I roger that. Yeah, I feel it right away. He says the intention telegraphs downward and then upward like a mechanical signal. So at some point, hopefully you get to do some push hands if you have not. And hopefully you can work with a person that's skilled enough so that you can feel, I'll say, the correct way, and you can also feel the incorrect way. They can point out I call them errors, but they're not really errors. They're actually like stepping stones, because in the beginning, remember, we're all going to be pushing from our legs. And that higher level practitioner that you're playing with, that's teaching you, they're going to feel it right away. And they're going to be uprooting you and moving you around. And you're going to be like, man. And then you'll start learning how they're moving you, and you'll start softening your body more. And they won't have a connection point anymore. They won't be able to feel your feet and legs anymore, or the origin of your movement anymore, or not as much. And you keep fine tuning it. But if you get into a shoving match, force on force, you may get really good at that. And that's the sad thing about it. Because Sifu would say, yeah, you got really good at very low level Tai Chi. What does that say? But if you want to get really good at very high level Tai Chi, you have to practice more non-physical things, because high level Tai Chi is based on the non-physical things. There's levels to this, all of this. If I try to move from my legs, my partner knows just like that. He says, but when I initiate from dantian, the movement arrives in their structure before they can interpret it. They don't even know it. It's like a thief in the night. It just shows up. Boom. Where'd that come from? He says, it is as if the center communicates directly with their center. Center to center. He says, bypassing the limbs, so you don't even feel the limbs at all, the arms and legs. He says, this is what the old teachers meant by moving the opponent without moving yourself. This stuff probably is like seeds that's being planted from some of you. But trust me, it's going to resonate as you begin to grow in your practice. He says, I am humbled by how long it has taken me to feel this clearly. So to feel this, he's humbled by it. And it took him a long time, obviously. He says, the body reveals its secrets slowly. And only when the mind stops insisting, it already understands. So a lot of time the mind gets in the way and we thinking we know everything already, right? The more we can they call it invest in loss, or emptying your cup. So drink a little more tea. Make room in your cup. That means make room in your body, make room in your mind. Stop thinking that we know everything. And then the cup can be filled. People can pour in more knowledge. They can feed more into us. Tai Chi is a whole life philosophy. It is for me. He says, today's practice reminded me that Tai Chi is not a study of movement, but a study of origin. Remember, where did the movement originate? He said, the visible shapes are merely the echoes of something quieter. People get into the hand movement. Remember, that's the last part of anything. That's the expression out the fingertips. Didn't start there. Shouldn't. That should be the ending. The visible shapes are merely the echoes of something quieter and more essential. We're going to end it on this one. He says, tomorrow I will return to the form with a renewed state of awareness. I suspect the movements will feel different. Not because they have changed, but because I, myself, have changed. I like that, family. You guys want to talk about any of that? Dan, welcome in, family.
Hey, hello. Sorry, it's a little bit late.
Hey, you right on time, man. Right on chime. So we're talking about the origin of movement and how people think that the movement, because they say Tai Chi is rooted in the feet, and how people start using their legs and their feet to initiate the movement, and how the movement should be coming from dantian. And Sister Sherry and I are mentioning that actually it comes before that, because it's non-physical. The non-feeling will be that intuition. You know, you get that gut feeling telling you to move here, move there, or not move here, not move there. Be still. Right? What about that? Sometimes stillness is the answer.
Yeah. I think ideally you got to get the intent going and train the body to follow.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, a common error that I hear people saying, and it's not my job to teach people how to teach, or it's really none of my business, but, and that's one reason I really don't look at other people's stuff. But I hear people telling the students to grip with their feet, like to grip the floor like this with their feet, with their toes. And we want to do the exact opposite. We're teaching release. So how can you release when you're doing this? You're clawing in. You're at a direct, in a direct conflict with the earth, Sifu would say, because the earth, it has a magnetic force, right? And it's wanting us to come down naturally. And when we do this, you're putting in conflict, or you're becoming too substantial. And when you come too substantial, it's like you bounce right off. You bounce right off. Earth doesn't absorb anything anymore. Become too physical. It's a completely different way of thinking about things. I know it is. And it can be confusing. I say the only way to understand not only this, but anything in life is through experience. That's it. You know, I think it's kind of funny sometimes, you know, I call myself, I remember Sifu says, he says, son, he says, be the, what do you call it? Be the, oh, this is it. Be the lovely dummy. And I'm like, what in the hell? Be the lovely dummy. Why would I want to be that? And basically what he was saying kind of reflected into something that I still laugh at sometimes. You know, we sometimes people get all this intellectual knowledge, and this is why I'm talking about it, because we're talking about knowing, right? It's not about intellectual knowing. And that's why he says, you know, it's not about spitting out all the things that you know, because there's also a knowing that comes from nature. And for me, that's the natural intelligence that we want to tap into. And a lot of people don't have it. They're very logical. They got the master's degrees, and they're proud of them degrees. But their body hasn't been educated. And the only way to educate the body is through movement. That I know of. Is through movement. I mean, they got people doing a robot now, but those are running through programs, right? You know, they got these robots and stuff doing all kind of crazy stuff, but they can't put real intelligence in those things because they're not nature. You know, there'll always be robots to some degree.
Yeah.
But to really learn anything, basketball, you can't just read about it. You can't just read about football. It might help you. The theory might help you. The philosophy might help you. I hope you have a philosophy that you go by, a life philosophy. And then when you embody it through movement, that's the real knowing to me, since we're talking about knowing. And the Tao, man, the Tao is always teaching, man. Always teaching. Anyway, that was right on time. I like that. That was one of Sifu's journals, and you got more. We got a ton, man. We got a ton.
Yeah, that's a lot of information.
That's a lot. That's a lot of information. It's a lot to process.
When did he have time to take and focus on that with the teaching and
You
writing?
just said what I was thinking. I was thinking the same thing.
That's, you know, the way that he kind of had his life. That's all he had was time. So
He wasn't married or anything?
he was, but he said my wife's a Tai Chi widow. Whatever he meant by that. But she was always there with us all the time, like fixing food and making sure we felt at home, and she was always there. Yeah, making sure that we don't knock her pictures off the wall when we're practicing. Her name is Nancy. Yeah, she's always there. Yeah. Pretty cool. She would come to the school.
You didn't say this for anything?
Say again? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Anyway,
Candy
fam.
asked me a question. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's wrap this one up, fam. I'm glad to see everybody stop in. There's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah.
And we had to go to Wally World. We got waylaid, so I thought it was going to be.
Thank you.